This video you learned about how to create live search in React using Axios, and in this video you're going to learn about how to create pagination, so when user wants to go to the next page he can see the next result. So currently we're only showing 20 results out of the number of results that we have, so you have like so many, we're showing only 20 of them. So we need navigation buttons basically. I've already written a blog that I mentioned earlier in the previous videos about it, so you can follow along this blog as well. So you can copy this code from here, you don't have to actually type it. And we have got a repository as well available on Git that you can use, which will be live search React and React Workshop. Okay, so I'll leave the link in the description box for the same. So let's begin how to create pagination. So in the previous video we were here wherein we had the state and we had the query results loading. Just to recap on that, we had created an input box. Whenever the user types something, we call the handle on input change. Handle on input change is going to go ahead and check if there is any query or not, if user has typed anything or not. If he hasn't, then we'll set the result to empty, message to empty, and we'll set the query as well. If he hasn't, then we will set the state to the query. We can put it like this: loading to true and message, and then we'll call fetch search result function, the job of which is to first check what is the page that you've received, and then this is the URL for search. Okay, and then we first check if there is already a request that has been placed. We cancel that request, we create a new token, pass that token inside of the Axios get request, a second parameter, and then whenever we receive the response, we set the response inside of the state, set loading to false. If we get any errors, we'll set loading to false and put that message there. And then we are using the render search result function to check if you've got any value in the result. If we have, loop through each item of the array and show the result by calling the function down at the bottom. We have a loader that we are using, so in case if the user types something, we'll show the loading until the request has been fetched and we have received the response. We're also throwing a message in case if we've got any errors or there's any message that we want to show to the user. Okay, so if you haven't followed along on the previous video, if this is the first time you're watching, no problem, you still have everything explained but in a shorter way. Okay, so if you want to watch and if you want to know in detail, you can watch the previous videos. Great, so we'll start from where we left. So we have the query for storing query, results, loading, and message. We need to add a few more. So we're going to need to add total results to create pagination, and we'll set its value to 0 initially. We'll need to set total pages because we need to calculate how many pages are going to be there. Only then we'll be able to know which page we are on and how, which will be the next page the user needs to go to, and that also decide whether we want to show the previous or next page links or not. Okay, so you need current page number to find out which page number we are currently on. Okay, now we need to create a function that calculates how many pages are there. So we'll name it as get page count, and it's going to be an arrow function. Okay, and over here we will say const. Okay, it's hanged a little bit. Const. We'll check if it's divisible or not, and before that we need to have it. This needs to have two arguments. One is total number of results, and second is denominator. Denominator will basically denote how many results are you showing per page. Okay, so divisible, we'll check if the total is divisible by the denominator. Okay, so we'll say divisible and then total. We'll use modulus operator and we'll put denominator, and then we'll check if it's equal to 0 or not, or we'll put that here, Yoda style. Okay, and then if it is divisible, then we'll put that value to be added is equal to divisible. So if divisible is true, which means the total is divisible by that number, then don't add anything, otherwise add 1. I'll explain to you in a moment. Okay, and just return we'll use math.floor, which is a JavaScript function which returns an integer value, total divided by denominator, and then just add the value to be added. So what's gonna happen, I'll give you an example. Okay, so let's say we get a total of 61 results, and we are showing 20 results per page. So think about it, how many pages will that be? So 20 into 3, that makes a total of 60, right? So that means this is going to check if it is divisible or not. So is 61 divided by denominator 20, is it divisible? Yes, it's divisible, but it's going to give me a remainder of 1, because 61 divided by 30 is 3, and then you have a remainder of 1 when you use this modulus operator. So in this case, divisible value will be false. So if it is false, we need to add one more page, because technically it will be 3 pages, and on each pages there will be 20 results, but then you will have 1 result remaining. So that will be shown on the 4th page. Okay, so then value to be added will be 1. So this is going to return the total. The total was 61 divided by denominator, so that comes to let's say 3, but it'll come to like point something, and math.floor is going to go ahead and convert that to just 3. It won't consider those points. And then so 3 pages plus 1, so 4 pages. Okay, so 20 on each, which is 3 pages, and then the 61th result will be shown on the 4th page. So that's how the calculation is. Okay, brilliant. Now we need to update the state with the page's information. So we're going to go back to our fetch result function, and over here we're going to calculate the total first. Okay, so if we check the query, we have total information available inside of this parameter, right? So what I'm going to do is, over here I'll say, when we receive the response, we'll say const result, or I can just say total instead of result. So result, which will be res.data.total, because remember total is here. Okay, and res.data will be equivalent to whatever value we get. So you've got a total, and I'm gonna go ahead and need to calculate the total page count as well. So I will say const total pages count. And since we already have a method in place that does that, we keep it neat and simple. We just call this function here using this, because this function belongs to the class, and then we'll just pass the total. So it takes 2 parameters. First is total, and second is what is the denominator, which means how many results are you showing per page. So it's 20 that we are showing, 20 results by default. So that's what we passed here. So this is going to give me the total pages count. And when we get the data, all we want to do is just set all of this information into the state. Okay, so I'm going to take this, all of this, put it right here. So total results will be total. I'll put that value, it's total. Okay, and then total pages count will be this. Okay, and current page number will be the updated page number. So whatever value we pass over here will be the updated page number. So later on we will create a function that actually updates this page number. Okay, so you've got that. Let's just check if this is working fine. Let's go over here, do an inspect element, go to React, developer tool, look for our search component and see what happens. If I type pick, you can see current page number is 1. Why? Because that's what we passed initially. You can see we are passing 1 in the fetch result. Updated page number is equal to current page number. Loading is false because it's done fetching. Message is nothing because you've got the data. Result, there are 20 results because that's what we are displaying it by default. Total results are 3242. So let's calculate. We have this function get page count. I'm going to pass total. So total is 3242. It's going to take that. Is that divisible by 20? So let's try that. 3242 divided by 20. So you can see it's not divisible. You have 162 and then there is 0.1, so it's not completely divisible. You have something remaining. So what's going to happen is this will be false. When it's false, you need to add one more page. Okay, and this mat.floor is going to round up this information. So it's going to just give 162 over here, and then it'll add one more page. So total number of pages should be 163. Okay, so do we have 163? Let's see. Yep, brilliant, awesome. That means it's all working fine. We have 163 pages. Currently we are on the first page, which means we should give the user the option to go to the next page, and when he goes to the next one, he should have an option to come back to the previous one. Let's do that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll create a function for this, because it's important that when we are dealing with so much of information, to keep things clean, let's divide these tasks by giving them to individual functions. So we'll name this as handle page click. Okay, so basically this function will be called when user clicks on the previous or next button. Let one function handle it rather than making it two function by giving it a parameter called type. Okay, so we can pass type is equal to previous in case if he hits on the previous button, and type is equal to next if he clicks on the next link to go to the next page. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is do event.prevent default. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll create those buttons as links. That is why we are going ahead and doing event.prevent default. Okay, we will create those buttons in a moment, but let's just write this function quickly. Okay, we'll say const updated. So we need to have the new page number. So updated page number will be equal to, we'll check if you've got priv. If the type is equal to priv, then the new page number will be this dot state dot current page number, because we have the current page number in the state, plus -1, which means user is, for example, on a page number 2, he needs to go on to the page number 1. So we will set the value of the current page number from 2 to 1 by subtracting 1 from it. Similarly, else, which means if we pass anything else, let's say next, then this will be equal to this dot state dot current page number plus 1. Okay, so for example, if he's on the page number 2, he wants to go to 3, the new page number becomes 3 by adding 1 to it. So let's divide this into different lines so it's more readable. Great, and put a semicolon there. So you've got the page number. We'll also check before making another query, which means what we want to do is when the user clicks on the next or previous button, we want to not only increment the page number and but also fetch the result of that page number. So if he's on page number 2 and he's asking for the previous page, that means he's asking for page number 1, updated page number value will become 1, and we want to get the result of the page number 1. How do we do that? We already have a function in place that takes the page number and the query. So we just have to call that function. But before we do that, we need to ensure there are no previous requests has already been made. So one way to find out whether there is already a query in place is by checking the value of loading, because remember we are setting loading to true, and only when we get the response we set the value to false, or if there's any error we set that value to false. So what we're going to do is we'll check if not this dot state dot loading, which means loading value should not be loading value should not be true, which means this should be false. Then go ahead and do a this dot set state. First we're going to set the state by setting the loading to true so that we have a loader being shown. Okay, and then we'll set the message. Okay, one moment, it's an object. We'll also need to set the message to empty string, because whatever the message was being displayed, I want to set that to empty so that we can show a new message if required. And then there's a callback. So once that is done, we can call our this sorry, this dot fetch results. And then we can pass this updated page number and the query. So query will be available in this state, so I can just take it from the state. This dot state dot query. That's available in the state, right? So we can take it from there. Great, awesome. Okay, since we have this function in place, all we want to do now is basically create our pagination buttons or links. For that, rather than making this dirty, I'm going to go ahead and create another component. The reason for this is because when you display the results, let's say like this, I will have one second. Yeah, I will have a button here and a button down at the bottom also, because if there are many results like this, if there are like many of them, and if the user clicks on the next button here and then goes down, and if he wants to click on previous or next, he doesn't have to scroll up for that, right? And that is not a very good user experience. So that's why we will gonna go ahead and create a reusable component which will be for navigation. Okay, and we should also go ahead and add some logic which will decide whether to show the previous or the next link or not, because remember that if he's on page number 1, we only want to show the next button. We don't want to show the previous button, because there are no results that are going to be available before the page 1. There can't be a page 0. So add some logic over here. We're going to say, first thing we're going to do is pull current page number, because to create that logic we will need current page number, and we will also need total pages from the state. So we'll pull that out, and over here we'll create a constant that will say show prev link. Okay, and we're going to say if the current page number is less than 1, then show the previous link, right? Sorry, I mean if the current page number is greater than 1, which means if he's on a page number 2 or higher, then show the previous link, because if he's on page number 2 or higher, only then he can come back to page number 1 or previous. And then show next link. What do you think this will be? So this will be total pages. If total pages is greater than your current page number, which means that let's say the total number of pages are 100 and he's on the 99th page number, then we can show the next link. But if he's already on the 100 page number and the total number of pages are 100, then he's already on the last page. We can't show him the next link, right? So that's why this checking the information is necessary, and this will evaluate to true or false, and this will decide whether we want to show those links or not. So next thing we're going to do is create a separate component for pagination. So we'll name it as page navigation.js. okay, and we don't need state and all over here, so it's going to be a functional component. So first thing we're going to do is import React. From React, export default. Since this is going to be only one component, we will export. We don't have to name it. It will be an arrow function, and this will contain props. Okay, and then we'll say return div. Okay, so it'll be a container, so we'll name it as class name as nav link container. Okay, we've got that. Now there'll be two links, so one link, two link. First link name will be prev, and the next one will be next. Okay, and of course href can be nothing because we don't want this default functionality of link to be working. We certainly need class names, and since we will need more information, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in separate lines, so for better readability. Okay, next here. Okay, great. So we've got the href. Let's give it a class name, and class name would be navlink. Okay, and this will be also navlink. Alright, great. Now let's go ahead and include this into our search component. The first, we'll import it on top. We'll say import page navigation from, it's in the same directory, so page navigation.js. Okay, and we'll go down. We need, remember, we need this navigation one above the query results and one below it. Okay, so we'll import it. We'll say page navigation, one above and one below, and let's just make it more readable. Navigation, one here and one here. Okay, of course it needs to have this event. So we've just already created handle page click, so we need to call this event. So in page navigation, we'll say on click, and we'll say this dot, or rather than because this is basically component, this is not an element, so we can't add an event here. So we need to pass the event like this. Say handle page click is equal to this dot handle page click, but we need to pass priv inside of it. Okay, handle, we'll name it as handle priv click. Okay, and handle next click will be handle page click, but this time I'll pass next into it. Okay, and we can copy the same thing over here as well. Okay, great. We also need loading because we may not want to go ahead and do something like make these links gray or something, in case if the previous request is already in process. So we'll pass loading here. We already have pulled out loading on top, so we've got that information, so we'll pass that. We'll also need to pass the show priv link and show next link, because that will decide whether to go ahead and show this link or not. So we'll pass show priv link and show next link. So these will be boolean values. Okay, so we're passing all of this information as props, guys, so that the component can consume it, the page navigation component can consume it. Okay, I think we passed it 2 times, so just get rid of that. Okay, since we've got all of that information available, we passed that here. We now need to go ahead and import all of this information. Okay,